this game, we'll ask our question to get the premium over to you guys. 6 months. We'll announce the winner at the conclusion of the semifinals, and of course our 12 months of premium giveaway at the conclusion of the finals. So it's all green all the time. Again, do remember, this top 8, no blue cards. There was Frostburn Weird, if you want to get a little bit technical.
Yeah.
But really no blue mana, no detention spheres, no verdicts, no Sphinx's Revs. It's time for creatures, baby.
That's right. Forest v Forest.
Elvis Mystic to begin here for Renner, so he's got the mana acceleration to start. Mana acceleration in green mirrors, it lets you play the bigger creature faster, and that's really how you get ahead in the green mirror matches from years past.
One of the things Erik Finnegan said, he's got a Voice of Resurgence. In the match he just played against the mirror match, his opponent did not trade away his Voice of Resurgence for the elementals, and he thinks that that was a huge part of why he won. He's the only one in this matchup with Voice of Resurgence, which is likely to have a big creature that comes with it.
Well, it's going to get suited up by an Unflinching Courage. So now it's going to be a 4/4 life-linking trample getting into the red zone here. So, Armadillo Cloak version 2 makes that Voice of Resurgence actually relevant, where Voice isn't actually great in the green mirrors. It's much better against mono red for many reasons, of course. Great blocker. If they kill it, you get a guy, and Pillar of Flame is no longer with us. And against blue-white decks, but you often find it pretty poor in mid-range mirrors, but Unflinching Courage is one way to actually end up making it relevant.
Now, that's a 4/4, but the deck that he's playing against has a bunch of 5/5s.
Yes, it does. I mean, it has Lucranos, it has copies of Deadbridge Goliath as well, so it doesn't really have much trouble blocking a big creature. Of course, Reverent Hunter can get very large too, so it's not very hard for Renner to have the biggest creature on the table a lot of the time that he does play. Nylea, the Green God, also does get pretty big, and now you actually see Reverent Hunter. There's your 5/5. One thing about 5/5s though, against green-white, they can die from Selesnya Charm.
And we'll have to see if Erik Finnegan has a Selesnya Charm in his hand.
Again, playing 3 copies of that card in his deck. Fantastic spell. Incredibly flexible in what it can do. Lets you win fights from +2/+2 and trample. Also lets you just exile a creature with power 5 or greater.
Oh,
Flinching Courage, however.
wow.
Gonna make this a 6/6, so he's moving in.
That is a big creature. And Chris Renner, very close to dead already. But things are not yet lost. He does have a Boon Satyr in his hand. But does he have anything else in his hand? What is that? Is that a god?
Yeah,
I think that's a
god.
god.
It's a Nylea. And so what that's going to do now is, this is a 6/6 indestructible. So Selesnya Charm actually still can't take care of it because it exiles it. But Nylea in the house, allowing him to actually block. It's indestructible, and I mean, giving the other guy's trample is actually quite good too. Now, does Renner want to still be aggressive here and attack because things could go wrong? I think he wants to play defensively right now, slow things down a little bit here, because, I mean, Selesnya Charm really does blow up everything if he attacks, and then Nylea's not so good. Maybe he just wants to attack with a Mystic. I think that's actually a pretty safe attack there.
Yeah. Now, at this point, the thing that could happen is that if there is a charm, it could get rid of the Hunter, which would then make the god also be disembodied. And but it's still, leaving that Nylea out does not seem like it's exciting. It's only really, I think, a play you'd want to make if you think the game is going to end in the next turn.
Well, 6/6 Indestructibles, kind of crossing his fingers, hoping that everything goes okay. No Selesnya Charm, please, from Erik, is what Renner is thinking. A Selesnya Charm, as you mentioned, does make everything difficult for Renner. Blocking will be very poor. You see Finnegan taking a look at a Rootborn Defenses in his hand right now. Not sure the rest of the contents, but he's going to get into the red zone again. And I can't imagine that Nylea's not really going to step up to the plate here and start the blocking duty. It is indestructible. All right. So, wow. So Voice is going to die. There go the Unflinching Courages as well. He's going to get that Elemental token, but doesn't really accomplish very much. I mean, don't forget that he does gain life here, so that's not irrelevant, but does he really accomplish much on that turn with that attack? Nylea just standing tall, no reason not to block there. There's an Experiment 1. There's a Dried Militant. He's going to evolve, and now you can see he's going to follow up with a Call the Conclave, so he's going to get to evolve again.
So now he's got a 4/4 token, a 3/3 token, a 3/3 Experiment 1, and a Dryad Militant. And in his hand is a Rootborn Defenses. So maybe his plan is just to make it a swarm, since he doesn't think that the single guy can make it anymore.
And I think, you know, a swarm strategy isn't the worst one. The problem here is that I think he's playing a deck that is kind of immune to a swarm strategy here in in mono green because its creatures are so very, very large. You see in Renner's hand, he has multiple copies of Scavenging Ooze now as well. So now he can just start making big creatures. He actually has one Scavenging Ooze, a Boon Satyr, and then another Reverent Hunter, as we do have a quick update here for you guys in our other match.
Yeah, it sounds as though we have Ian Barton, the Naya player, has defeated Dan Musser game 1 with Junk. So it's Naya over Junk in the first game.
Coming back to this one, though, you see the Renner, again, does have those options. Reverent Hunter in his hand, Boon Satyr, and Scavenging Ooze. Both of those cards, or excuse me, all three of those cards actually quite good in this situation. Scavenging Ooze does have the ability to take over a game eventually. In going to come the Reverend Hunter. That's a 5-5. Going to have to be some trades in combat here to get that thing off of the table. But Finnegan, at a high life total, says, I'm more than happy to just take 5.
Now, remember that Boon Satyr, the Bestow ability is flashable.
Mm-hmm. I like this play here. He's going to cast Scavenging. He's probably going to cast the Reverend Hunter too. And his devotion count is just going to be huge. He's just making the biggest creatures on the table, and this is part of the reason that I think this matchup is actually pretty tough for Finnegan, is because his deck just has to beat big dumb idiots, for lack of a better term. And we saw, especially at Pro Tour Avacyn's Restored, with Wolfir Silverheart, when you're in the green mirrors, it's the person who has the biggest creature that wins. And Wolfir Silverheart was always the biggest creature at 12-12, making another creature, typically an 8-8 or something of that nature, and you really can't compete with that. And that's kind of what Reverend Hunter's doing in this matchup. Look how big that thing is.
Another voice joins the party. So currently, the elemental from the previous voice is a 5-5. Nothing to sneeze at, but at the same time, outclassed by these other creatures, as you said.
Yeah, 5-5 is big.
And remember, Nylea is making everything there a trampler and can pump it. So
yeah, I mean, Nylea is a little bit off the bottom of the screen for you guys, but the God is in play. As Adrian mentioned, it does give every other creature trample, and those +2/+2 activations as well are actually quite good. As you see Nylea, God of the Hunt on the screen here. We were always kind of wondering, once the gods were released, how do you make these things work? The one that's been actually talked about the most, I feel like, is one that's actually been played the least in Perforos. It hasn't really found that success, and as a red mage, I'm sure that doesn't make you the happiest, but it's a hard card to work with.
it is very hard to work with. I mean, Boros Reckoner is almost a requirement, but it seems like the real god of red is the Fanatic of Mogis.
Yeah, that's actually what it does feel like right now as we do develop our standard format over these couple of weeks. In going to come the Reverend Hunter, sitting at a 5-5. Voice Resurgence is going to get in the way. Reverend Hunter will trample over for 3, at the very least. If Renner does want to make an activation of the Nylea, he can make his creature into a 7-7 and push some more damage across. I mean, don't forget, he does have that Boon Satyr in his hand. Looks like it's burning a hole in his pocket.
I think he's going to hold on to that Boon Satyr for a trick. He can always do that at the end of the turn. The amount of life that Erik Finnegan is at is such that I don't know that it's significantly enough to hit that in there. He disagrees. That's fine. That means he's going to be hitting for 9 minus the 2 trample, or minus the 2 toughness. So that's 7 that he's going to be hitting for. And that 7 is going to knock Erik Finnegan down to 20.
He will get the Voice of Resurgence token, but again, now he's facing down 2 very, very big creatures. I would not be surprised to see Renner come in with both Reverend Hunters on the following turn. There's your Voice token, of course, for Finnegan. I mean, Finnegan's looking at 2 5/5 elemental tokens, but right now, there's also a Call the Conclave token out there as well, but right now, again, he is being outclassed in the creature area. And even though he does have a Rootborn Defenses in his hand, Trample is the thing that's making this really tough for him.
Once he gets another creature out, let's say he has a 1-drop, if he top decks one, that would make both the elementals into 6/6s, and then if he were to Rootborn Defenses, he would have 3 7/7 elementals. But it's crazy that 3 7/7 elementals almost feels too small for what he's facing down.
We're going to get Scavenging Ooze activation. Finnegan just draws his card and passes the turn. So now Ooze is working its way up with the rest of the other creatures and getting very, very big. And heaven forbid, if Renner does draw a cloning a Hydra, things will just spiral out of control here for Finnegan, doubling all the counters on that creatures, and they will all have trample due to Nylea. It's already a tough game for him. If you're Finnegan, you're hoping no Hydra shows up. And there's a Forest. You see, Renner's going to slam that into play immediately. It's going to give him 7 mana for the turn, so we can get a Nylea activation plus some Ooze activations. Maybe Mutavault comes into the red zone. Who knows? But I think that lands are very good for him right now.
Absolutely.
And spells are good for him, and that's the enviable position that he's in.
In comes one of the creatures. This one, the 9/7 Reverend Hunter.
Can turn into an 11-9 right now.
Yeah.
Everybody's gonna.
Everybody. And I might have waited for him to pump some mana into that guy first.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he's gonna make a move now. I'm kind of with you there, where everybody gets in front. Finnegan's gonna win combat here. He's gonna get a voice token due to populate. So he's building up a pretty big board himself right now. His voice tokens are all gonna be 6/6s here.
That's a neat voice there. And remember that all of these creatures are currently indestructible, so that 9/7 is gonna be dying. There we got some voices. Look at that, nice voices. And the Boon Satyr is gonna fall off of the creature that it's on, the Reverend Hunter, and maintain itself as on the battlefield a 4/2.
So Experiment 1's going to evolve from that voice token coming into play. Not sure if he missed the trigger on that or not, because now he's going to blocking. It does happen once the Rootborn defense is resolved. He would actually get his evolve trigger. So it looked like he was a little bit hasty there and did miss the trigger. Renner says, "No, I'm not going to let you get it in this particular situation. You're already getting my guy. You're getting more than that." But we'll see. We'll see exactly how it goes. I mean, we do have a spotter on hand and a judge, so we'll see what the ruling does end up being, if he does get to evolve or not. But at the end of the day, what's going to happen after this combat, Adrian, is that Reverend Hunter's going to go to the bin, Boon Satyr is going to come into play, and then Scavenging Ooze is going to have a little more fodder in the graveyard.
I mean, it could be that Erik Finnegan might be able to turn this around, but he's still got his work cut out for him. Fighting through that god, that's a hard task. It is indestructible.
Yeah.
And being able to pump up creatures, we see the 8/8 Reverend Hunter that is just below on the side. Okay, he's pumping it. I'm not sure what he's accomplishing there.
So he's going to make his guy... Yeah. He's going to order blockers here, but he's staring at all indestructible guys. Those voice tokens are all 6/6s, so that's 18 toughness by itself. Dried Militant makes it 19. Experiment 1 makes it 23, and then the Conclave token makes it 26. So pumping here doesn't even accomplish anything. You'd rather just leave your mana open so that you can actually pump defensively instead of offensively.
We see the line of blockers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And he's like, yeah, you got it. Here's my Boon Satyr. You got my guy. That's more like it. And this means that right now, I believe we have just that creature in the graveyard.
Yeah, there's the Boon Satyr over there, and then 3 Unflinching Courages. Or 2 Unflinching Courages, and I think
there is
maybe
one
a
voice.
Yeah,
There's one voice. Okay, so there's 2 creatures in the graveyard.
So it looks like Ooze can come up to a 5/5 now.
One of the problems with this kind of matchup, and why a card like the sideboarded Johnny Caller of the Pride can be so important, is you can just end the stall.
Yeah.
You can say, hey, this has been a nice time. We've been looking at each other from across the room. I'm just going to jump over you.
Renner going to go up to 13 now from those 2 Ooze activations. Ooze is going to be a 5/5 now. And the big thing here is, as you do trade in combat, Ooze gets more fodder. Ooze gets to become the biggest creature on the board. But Renner, again, does have to work through these annoyingly large voice tokens. We'll see what he drew this turn.
A Scavenging Ooze?
Can't quite make it out. I mean, it's certainly a spell and not a land. Might be a
Tusker. Oh, it's a Tusker.
Yeah. Which doesn't do a lot to this board. Again, he just has to decide how he wants to attack now. He's got the 6, 7, 8/8 Reverend Hunter that he can make into a 10/10 with an Ilea activation. But it's pretty easy for Finnegan to be able to kind of block that profitably. So I think if you're Renner, you just want to play draw go here.
Yeah.
Until maybe you just find a Hydra and win the game that way. He only does have 2 Hydras, so it's not great, but I think it's at least one game plan.
Another thing to think about is to attack with the god.
Sure.
He's got, on Renner's side, he's got a huge Reverend Hunter, and he's got a sizable number of defenders that... See, this is the one play I don't like, is attacking with that.
I'm with you on that.
He's going to lose his Reverend Hunter, and he's going to take out one of the elementals.
So if Finnegan double blocks...
Hell, triple block with your elementals.
So if he triple blocks, it's 18 toughness. You deal... He's got an activation, 6, 7, 8. So this is a 6... This is an 8/8 Reverend Hunter. You can make into a 10/10. So you can deal 6 to one, 4 to the other. One elemental dies. Second one dies from damage being on it.
No,
No?
because it's going to be a 5/5.
5/5. Okay, yeah. So we're not there yet.
Yeah, he's
Okay.
one shy of it.
Okay.
So like if he does the what
Another
is
Rootborn?
this?
Okay. That makes it attack
Oh
really bad now.
boy.
Rootborn's actually
Yeah, how about we all block you?
Because now Revenant Hunter's going to go to the bin now again. And I'm kind of with you where I don't really like that attack. And truthfully, I don't really like attacking at all in this situation. Because now Finnegan actually gets to go back on the offensive. And if you know, I've got my Indestructible God because I still have the necessary amount of Bestow. But, I mean, combat doesn't even go well for you there, even if he doesn't have Rootborn defenses. As you mentioned, you get to knock out one Elemental token. And I think if you're Finnegan, you would love to trade an Elemental token for that Revenant Hunter.
Yeah.
You'd be thrilled with that trade.
And now I think what's going to happen is, okay. Well, now I think what's going to happen is we're going to have the god have to block something and not even kill it, and then the other creatures are also going to have to block. And at the end of that combat, the god is going to be dead. Meanwhile, in the other match, looks like Ian Barton and Dan Musser are on to game 3.
So Musser being able to tie it up with Junk versus Naya. So a third and final game. I know that you felt that Musser was going to win that matchup, removal actually being quite important in that matchup. He's able to get into game number 2, but that means he's on the draw for game number 3, which could be problematic for him. He does have a decent amount of mana acceleration, though,
Yeah.
with Mystic and Caryatid, where Barton doesn't have as much mana acceleration. And I think mana acceleration is a big deal in that matchup. Maybe he can steal the initiative back.
For those of you who are just joining us, I'm Adrian Sullivan here with Cedric Phillips, and we are in Cleveland for the StarCityGames.com Open Series. Today will primarily be a day of Legacy, but before that, we have this top 4 to bring you. 4 players, the top 4 out of 406. On the left, Erik Finnegan with the green-white aggro deck. On the right, Chris Renner with green Stompy.
You gotta be pretty thrilled if you're Renner to not get attacked this turn, I think. Yes, he does have an Indestructible Nylea in play, and the god is active. Land's gonna come into play. So now he has double Nylea activation to give creatures +2/+2, basically representing +4/+4 to any one of his guys. But again, I think he's in the situation here where he just is going to play draw go. He has no reason to actually make a move. He's got some big draw steps available to him. Colonial Hydra was the best of the bunch. I'm not sure it's that good anymore. Voice of Resurgence is going to come into the red zone. Finnegan saying, I would love another elemental token. Renner saying, I don't want to give you one, so I'm going to go down to 12.
Now you might be wondering what that glared card is on the bottom of Chris Renner's side of the table. That is a Nylea there. It's just got so much glare on it that you wouldn't be able to tell.
Let's see, Finnegan's attack is over. We're going to Renner's turn now. He's going to draw a card. Let's see if he found a spell yet. Because now lands aren't as good for him anymore. He was in the position where drawing a land or two was actually pretty good because he'd be able to get up to 8 mana. But now he's going to draw a Pelucrados and be able to put that into play.
I guess land is good again.
Yeah, now land is good again. Because land now would make it so that he have 9 mana, 1 green for the activation, and he can spread out 4 points of damage either way. Here is Advent of the Worm. That's going to be a 5/5. That doesn't really change things very, very much here for Finnegan. So there's your Advent token.
And the worm does not even make the Experiment 1 evolve, which is a kind of unusual position.
But you take a look at Finnegan's board now. He has 1, 2, 3, 4 voice tokens. So 4, 5, 6, 7. I believe those may be 8/8s at this moment. No trample, of course. Just big 8/8 creatures.
Oh, 9/9s, aren't they?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
And there's a dried Milton at the top.
So 9/9s. It might be time for him to turn into the red zone here. He could get in with all those 9/9s, and what really goes wrong?
Not much.
Yeah. He's sitting at a pretty comfortable 20 life. I don't think a ton goes wrong if he just says, all right, voice tokens, let's do this. It's about that time. 2 mana. Call.
Okay. So 10/10 voices. Voice elemental tokens.
Yeah. Is he ever going to get aggressive here? That's the question. If you're Renner, I think you're praying he doesn't attack.
I mean, there was a turn a few, I think 1 or 2 turns ago where I think the attack would have been pretty good as well.
Yeah. I think the attack this turn's great. 2, 3, and he's going to come in with all 4 of them. So those are 4 10-10s coming into the red zone.
Now, whatever you end up doing here, if you're Chris Renner, it is very likely that your god will cease to be embodied.
Mm-hmm. And you take a look at his blocks. His blocks just aren't great. I mean, double blocks are pretty poor. You know, he could go, you know, just taking a look at things like, you know, he blocks there. He can put Scavenging Ooze and Pelucranos in front of an elemental token to try to get it dead. And then, you know, the other 2 guys are going to come in, so he's going to have to be on chump blocking duty there, too. It's not great. I mean, I would almost consider, if I'm Finnegan, maybe getting that Advent of the Worm token. Not sure if you can attack with everything at this point, but again, Renner's at 12 life.
I mean, I think I would attack with all of those tokens, plus the Experiment 1, plus the Advent.
I mean, this is a pretty complicated situation here. This really goes to show, you know, how much... This is the combat mat situation right now. And we don't really see in Standard you get into board stalls like this. This is more of like the limited aspect of Magic, where, you know, creatures are just kind of sitting there looking at each other, and then you start attacking. And, you know, a lot of times combat tricks are involved, but here it's just straight up, I'm coming in with 10-10s, and you balance your resources appropriately. I don't think you have any very good blocks. Nylea, of course, will bounce off of a guy, but how good are the rest of your blocks here? Looks like Elvish Mystic's going to get in front of something. Looks like he's going to be on a lot of chump blocking here.
He's got to be careful if he loses too many devotion symbols.
Yeah.
We've got the double block there that's going to theoretically, as long as nothing goes wrong, kill that elemental.
And if I'm Renner in this situation, I'm doing a lot of moving my creatures around here to see what the blocks look like. You know, I want to get a very visual look at, okay, if I double block here, what happens? You know, if I pump my guys, what happens here, there, everywhere? I want to know exactly what's going to happen in combat. I don't want to make any hasty blocks here and chumping and stuff like that, because now he's going to go down to 2 and that voice getting through. Not sure if Finnegan's going to lose another voice. Doesn't look like it. And I'm not even sure if he could have done better in that combat. I feel like he may have been able to, but, you know, you're not positive. So I would want to move around a lot of things there to see what things would look like.
And one thing to remember now, Erik Finnegan's Voice of Resurgence still sits on the table, and it's going to come in now.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, look what happened there. Renner loses a couple of creatures. Finnegan loses 1 from the voice token, but he's still got 9 voices. So he doesn't even lose very much in that combat. So Finnegan is doing exactly what he wants to do, is whittle away down Renner's creatures, and he's the one with the bigger creatures on the board. And again, when you're in a green mirror match, it's the person who has the bigger creatures that oftentimes wins.
Right now, after having lost that Mystic, Elvish Mystic, not Llanowar Elf, after having lost that Elvish Mystic, Chris Renner can only monstrous his Pelucranos for 3.
Yeah.
He scoops it up, seeing no real way out of the path that is ahead of him.
So we do see that Erik Finnegan is going to win game number 1 over Chris Renner. Green-White Aggro is going to win game 1 over Mono Green. And before we do go to the sideboards, we're going to bring it back to the booth here because it is trivia time. I'm going to let Adrian explain the rules for trivia, and then I will be the one asking the question for our 6 months.
If you have never seen our trivia before, it's pretty awesome. The Star City Games Premium gives away all kinds of prizes. This time, yesterday it was 3 free months of Star City Games Premium in the quarters, 6 free months right now in our semis, and in the finals we're going to give away 12 free months of Star City Games Premium. How do you get involved? It's pretty simple. We'll give you a trivia question. Cedric has something in mind, and what you need to do is you need to tweet your answer with the hashtag. You can see it there on the bottom right underneath our elbows there.
Yeah.
Hashtag SCG Premium. You could put whatever other hashtags you want in there, but you need that hashtag, SCG Premium, and include your answer. If you are one of those lucky people that has given the correct answer, one of you will be luckily selected to receive the prize of 6 free months of Star City Games Premium. So Cedric, take it away. What is your trivia question?
All right, we'll take a look at Erik Finnegan's deck list. Within his deck list, he's got a lot of creatures, a lot of 4s, a lot of 3s. All of his spells actually in his deck are all 4s and all 3s, except for 1 single card. And if you can name that one of that he has in his main deck, in his green-white deck, it's actually kind of difficult to cast. Hashtag your answer, SCG Premium. Again, we will select one winner from the group of people who do get it correct, and we will announce our winner at the conclusion of our semifinals. So it is about accuracy, not speed. And if you can name that singleton that he does have in his main deck among all of the creatures and spells, hashtag your answer, SCG Premium. As we are going to head back to the match now, take a look at the sideboards. We're going to start on the mono-green side of things. I know you do have that deck list in front of you. Renner being down a game. What can he do to turn things around?
Okay, his sideboard mostly is set up for other decks. 3 Mistcutter Hydras against the blue decks. That's not necessarily so good here. 2 Fade into Antiquities. 4 Nylea's Disciple. 3 Time to Feed, 3 Garruk Caller of Beasts. The last 6 cards, 3 Time to Feed and 3 Garruk Caller of Beasts, are the cards that I think are possible from this matchup. Time to Feed, if you're not sure, is green 2 sorcery. Your creature fights their creature, and then if their creature dies, you gain 3 life. And the reason he might want to bring this in is he starts out, at least in the beginning, with a bigger creature. There's not much creature removal, and this is an opportunity for him to do something like kill an early elemental token before it gets out of hand. Garruk, Caller of Beasts, if he had drawn one of these cards early in the game that obviously are not in his main deck yet, but if he had, somehow had a slightly different deck list and drawn a Garruk Caller of Beasts, just getting a huge swarm against a deck like Erik Finnegan's, I think would have been enough to turn the tide.
Yeah, I mean, if we get into a late game situation like that one, Garruk will actually be one of the cards that does allow Renner to come back and actually get back into the game, potentially just straight up win it for him. It really changes the way that Finnegan has to play the game. Each player typically just drawing 1 card per turn. Renner has the ability to draw multiple cards per turn, build up some card advantage, find some more cards that are relevant, maybe find that Colonial Hydra that would have been able to win him the game. So I love Garruk in this matchup, especially if he can cast it ahead of schedule. You take a look at Finnegan's sideboard on the left, 2 Pithing Needles, a Centaur Healer, Unflinching Courage, 2 Druid's Deliverance, 1 more Rootborn Defenses to go along with his 3 main deck, 2 Sundering Growth, 1 Tristani Selesny's Voice, 1 Ajani Caller of Pride, 3 Glare of Heresy, and 1 Hunt to Hunter. So we'll go quickly down one by one. Pithing Needle, not really for this matchup, but Garruk Caller of the Beast might be worth naming and bringing that card in because it does play such a huge role in this matchup. CC Centaur Healer, 3 life, not going to be too relevant in this matchup. 3/3 body, going to get outclassed. Unflinching Courage, it did a little bit of work in game 1, but at the end of the day, I don't think it did very much. We saw those Unflinching Courages get traded off. The life that he gained was like a semi-relevant, but not a big deal. So I would actually be surprised if he left the 3 in his main deck in, let alone board in the 4th one. 2 copies of Druid's Deliverance, I actually like a lot.
Me too.
Populate, really, really big deal when you have Call the Conclave, elemental tokens from Voice of Resurgence, and Advent Worm in your deck. But the Fog, there's nothing that Renner can actually do about the Fog. So that effect is actually going to be really powerful in the mirror match. Rootborn Defenses, we actually saw that just be 3 mana, making another elemental token. Is it worth investing in that? I guess it lets you win a fight against a big creature too. But if you're Renner, I think that those attacks were poor into Rootborn Defenses, so if he doesn't make those attacks, I don't think Rootborn Defenses is as good, but there is some value in 3 mana, just make an elemental token.
Yeah.
Sundering Growth, nothing for him to target in Renner's deck, so that's going to stay on the board. Tristani Selesny's Voice, I kind of like that too. If we're going to get in that long, drawn-out affair, being able to consistently populate those voice tokens or Advent of the Worms and gain some life and put yourself out of range, pretty powerful stuff. Also, 5 toughness, not something to ignore. Ajani Caller, probably a card I know that you like, kind of get the game over with pretty quickly. Again, if we do get in a board state where everything is gummed up, I think it's realistic for you to go up, 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 ultimate. I think that's actually quite realistic. 3 Glare of Heresy? No. We'll just make that one short and sweet. And then 1 Hunt the Hunter. It's very similar to Renner's Time to Feeds in that it is a way for green creatures to fight and actually kill each other. So it's basically a removal spell in this matchup, and I actually kind of like that as just a 1-of. It's efficient, it can take care of a big guy. I don't think it's as good as Time to Feed in this matchup, but again, I like actually having that effect here and having access to that in these sideboarded games.
It's interesting because I actually like Hunt the Hunter more because it's cheaper.
Sure.
But I hadn't even considered Tristani's other ability, the Populate ability. That seems completely insane in this matchup.
Yeah, I think the Populate ability is going to be fantastic the entire time that you do end up playing. And if the games go like game 1 did, where players are just going to get into a board stall, I think that Finnegan has some really big game-breaking effects, like Tristani, that will actually allow him to win. Also, if he just does draw a Druid's Deliverance, and you get into that board stall where both players are just amassing armies, and then Renner decides, all right, it's time to go for it. I think my army's bigger than yours. He could get fogged and just lose to the counterattack.
Yep.
And that's not something that Renner has access to that Finnegan does. Now, the other thing that makes it really interesting too, Adrian, is that both players have access to each other's deck list, so Renner could actually overthink and be like,
Yes.
oh god, what if he has Druid's Deliverance? This is going to go horrible for me. I can never attack. And, you know, what is he going to do about that aspect of the game as well?
That's the one I think actually that's even more damning in a sense, because when you aren't able to actually make all of your plays because of the fear of a play, if the fear of a play is going to make you die, that's just too much. If you're just joining us, I'm Adrian Sullivan here with Cedric Phillips, and this is the semifinals. Erik Finnegan versus Chris Renner. We have an Elvish Mystic on the start for Chris Renner, followed up by a Boon Satyr, and it looks like we have Reverent Hunter coming down as a 5/5 on turn 3. And you can see the Elvish Mystic hangs back here. It doesn't want to get perhaps ambushed. There's a Selesnya Charm, and so that 5/5 is gone. We didn't see any Selesnya Charms in Game 1. They would have been very effective in Game 1, because if a Selesnya Charm had been drawn by Erik Finnegan in that first game, it could have easily blown the game open much earlier. But here it finally gets some work done, getting rid of that 5/5 Reverent Hunter. The Boon Satyr, though, still around.
Yeah, if he has another Selesnya Charm, he can actually block there, but he does not have one. We'll get those light totals updated for you guys momentarily. You do see that Finnegan just draws a Rootborn Defenses, but he doesn't actually have anything to play. He does have an Unflinching Courage in his hand. Again, he does have defenses in hand as well, but he's not really doing anything right now. Now, of course, if you're Renner, 4 mana passing the turn, probably Advent of the Worm hanging out over there. Yeah, and there it is.
6 mana open. He did not cast Caller of the Beasts, so he's either got nothing much or he's got a Boon Satyr in his hand.
Okay.
Oh boy, he was planning on, I think, that as a double block, but Unflinching Courage is kind of a little bit depressing for him. He's like, never mind a double block.
Well, he's going to come into the rest one with a 7/7 Trampler, Renner with no good blocks. So he's going to take 7, and Finnegan's going to gain 7 here.
Oh, that looks like land.
Yeah,
It's done.
Extend the hand.
Now, wow. After that's over, that makes that the match. However, one thing to know, Dan Musser in the other bracket has just defeated Ian Barton with the Naya. So Junk advances 2-1, and in this bracket, Erik Finnegan with green-white defeats Chris Renner 2-0.
So that means we're going to see Junk versus green-white. We're going to see